Welcome into All-American once again from Studio A. I'm Kyle Youmans alongside Malia Trivelpeice, and if there was any week where it's truly All-American, this would be the week because we have 7 football games, all teams in action, plus a little bit of hoops to talk about. I've only got the football over here, but we've got some hoops as Media Day is now in the rearview mirror. Maria, big week for the American Football Conference. This is going to be a fun one in Week 8.
I wish we had a basketball because then we could have had both of those as props to start
one
off.
like over there
maybe
somewhere.
we should have found one before we started, but no.
Didn't
big week. I can't wait to talk football. As you said, Kyle, we have some Media Day from basketball. That was a lot of fun too. So many sports. It's gonna be a fun one for sure.
No doubt about it. And really, this is a week where a lot of teams that are kind of mix and matched inside the American Conference standings can either show themselves as contenders or pretenders. We know these two are contenders. These are the military academies ranked for the first time together since 1960. An incredible time for both Navy and Army. Maria, this is so cool. And finally, a ranking well-deserved at this point. It took them for both of them to be undefeated halfway through the season in order to finally get these rankings, but the time has come.
You know, we've been calling for this, I feel like, since week 2. Well, you've been calling it for week 2, Horvath for Heisman. So people are finally paying attention.
Bryson for Heisman. I mean, now we've got a couple
I know,
guys
I
in
know.
there.
That's going to be a whole different discussion. I don't think we could get to that one today. But yeah, totally deserved for both of these programs. And I'm excited to watch them in the upcoming week as well.
Let's take a look at some of these standings because right now it is Army and Navy still pacing the way. But then we've got a trio of 2-0 teams. And I talked about those contenders and pretenders. North Texas has a matchup against Memphis this week. Charlotte has a big matchup. Tulane back in action again this week as well. I mean, all 3 of those teams that are 2-0 have a chance to continue proving themselves this week. So I'm really excited to see who can decipher between the unbeatens and the defeateds. And right now, I think Memphis is a team that a lot of people are forgetting about. We mentioned that a little bit last week. They've got a chance against North Texas, a team right now that's ahead of them in the standings. There's a lot of moving and shifting that could happen.
Yeah, I think you kind of took the words out of my mouth when you talked about Memphis, right? Because you were talking about all of those undefeated teams and how is that going to shift, right? But you have Memphis with a loss, but they looked pretty good against South Florida, and we're going to get into that later on in the show. But I think that this is going to be the week when we finally start to see, all right, who's that top half of the American Conference and who's at the bottom. Things are going to start moving and shaking, and that's why I'm really pumped because I think I have some questions still, and I think this week will determine some of them.
And we are going to preview that Memphis-North Texas matchup. Also, you've got a fun one between Charlotte and Navy coming up this week. And then you've got Tulane, another 2-0 team, taking on a Rice Owls team that won it in the most interesting way this past week.
Low snap. Warner looking for the end zone. Touchdown!
A closer look. Coverage was good. He's actually going to get a piece of it here. Kind of create a little bit of a distraction as he's going down. Oh, he cradles that. That is just beautiful.
It was beautiful, no doubt about it. Matt Sykes with the catch of the year as Rice holds on to defeat UTSA in one of the best games you will ever see at the collegiate level. This play, one of the top plays on SportsCenter most recently. Of course, you've got an opportunity to see it probably later in the show. Not to spoil anything. But the fact that Rice got the job done the way that they did here against UTSA, winning this one with 4 seconds remaining, I cannot say enough about the Rice Owls and the way that they got it done.
Well, it's all about performing in the clutch, right? Especially when we're talking about who's going to differentiate themselves in those standings. And I just think that this play, especially from Sykes, holding on to that ball at the end, I was watching on my couch and I was starting to get tired. I have to admit, it was getting later in the night. We had media days coming up, and I was like, that did not just happen. And I was so impressed, but such a big win for Rice this weekend.
Let's go through this a little bit because I think for the most part, this is a game that we went into it looking at UTSA, trying to prove themselves, trying to get back on track after a couple of tough losses early in the season against Texas State, Texas, and, of course, East Carolina to open conference play. Went into a bye week, and coming out of the bye week, you expected the Roadrunners to play well. Well, instead, they found themselves in a hole going into the fourth quarter. 23-13 was the score. Rice was the team that really took advantage early. UTSA storms back, finally finds that rhythm to retake the lead in the fourth quarter with just under 3 minutes to play. But then the defense just cannot hold. What did you think about how this one unfolded?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in the way that you described it, right? Like Rice just jumping out early, but I like the way that UTSA fought back, right? Like they had some opportunities. McCown did a pretty good job throwing the ball as well, 256 yards and 3 touchdowns. And so I just think that there were some, again, more good signs, but they just weren't able to close the deal. And I think that that's something that they've been struggling with this entire season. And I felt bad because I thought that they did show some good things in that game, and then just not being able to pull it out. It just becomes so frustrating for a team when things like that keep happening.
But you got to give credit where credit is due, and that's E.J. Warner and company. The former Temple Owl making the in-conference transfer this past offseason. Hasn't played particularly well this year for Rice, and he was phenomenal. 25 of 39 passing, 347 yards, a couple touchdowns. You take a look at some of these numbers and the way that he led the team when they needed it most by getting up in the fourth quarter. Big part of that. Final drive, 8 plays, 65 yards, finds that touchdown pass at the end to Sykes with 4 seconds left. I mean, it was a phenomenal game from an entertainment standpoint, but execution-wise, E.J. Warner looked like he was back and comfortable with the Rice Owls.
Well, I think you said this before we even went on air today, was the fact that E.J. Warner looked like Temple E.J. Warner. And you know, everybody knows he can throw the football, right? That is one of his biggest strengths. I was watching an interview with him, and he said, look, I'm not considering myself physically fast, but I'm mentally fast in the way that I see the field, the way that I can make reads. And we saw that happen. You saw those numbers in this game against UTSA. And I think that's a really big win for Rice in terms of not even just, you get the W in the right column, but also just like a moral victory, showing that he can throw the ball like he did at Temple and use those skills that he has.
I'm really excited to see if he can build on this, because I thought he got better as the game went along. And part of that is because of the football IQ, the way he can see and read a defense. I thought the way that he put together the 3 touchdown drives in the second half, the way that he took advantage of UTSA mistakes. And there were plenty of UTSA mistakes, don't get me wrong. We'll talk a little bit more about the Roadrunners later, but I thought some of those aided penalties helped set them up. Rice did what they needed to do offensively to get the job done, and the defense held strong and held serve on the opposite side. That combination could be what turns the Rice season around, and they showed it against UTSA.
Well, I think it's just the perfect time to start to trend in the right direction, right? Yeah. It's still early. We looked at those standings. Some teams played more conference games than others, but some teams only have 2 games that they played in the American. And so I think if you're going to find a way to turn something around, a big win like this in the final moments is one way to do it.
How about Rice in back-to-back conference games, playing all the way down to the final few plays? 21-20 and a loss to Charlotte. They learned from that, turned around, and they get it done this time around. But now they get a tough test this week. I mean, they go on the road down the Youmans Stadium. They're taking on the Tulane Green Wave. And when you look at these two teams, it's Tulane's offense that continues to get better. 41 points, 45 points, 71 points the last 3 outings for Tulane. But Rice specifically is a defense that's playing better. Gave up just the 21 points against Charlotte, the 27 against UTSA. So we take a look at some of the numbers here. What stands out to this matchup?
I think the biggest thing for me is more of answering a question, right? And my question in this matchup is Rice going to be able to adjust to the way that Tulane plays them defensively? Because I think everybody knows that E.J. Warner can throw the football.
Yeah.
So can you figure out a way to maybe run the ball a little bit more? Can you figure out a way to get open targets? Because Tulane's defense, you look at those numbers right there, they're not allowing a lot of points. You got to be able to adjust to that.
Yeah, points allowed per game, just the 21.8. And 2 good quarterbacks. E.J. Warner never faced Tulane during his time at Temple. So this is his first ever matchup with the Green Wave. And then Darian Mensah, who's completed 80% of his passes in back-to-back games. That West Coast scheme from Tulane is making it simple on the young quarterback. The redshirt freshman is somebody that continues to dink and dunk and work his way down the field methodically. To end up with 71 points is one thing, but to do it so efficiently is another. He's not being asked to do too much. And I think right now Darian Mensah is leading that football team, surrounded by a ton of talent. We talked about Mekhi Hodges on the backside, or Hughes, excuse me, Mekhi Hughes in the backfield for this Tulane team. I like what Mensah has been doing, and I like how Hughes has kind of complemented that passing game with the running attack, the rushing attack that is so good and one of the best in the American Athletic Conference. This should be an interesting matchup moving forward.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it. And I think, you mentioned how he's not being asked to do too much, right? But he's also not trying to do too much, which I feel like, especially in young quarterbacks, you see that happening. You're pressing a little bit. Yeah. And I think the fact that Tulane does just, have so many of those different pieces. You mentioned Mekhi Hughes. We're going to talk about him.
He's so
good. I feel like, was it last week when we broke down just what makes him so good? Mm-hmm. I think having those other pieces takes some of that pressure off, but also having a little bit of that maturity to know, hey, I don't need to do everything on this team helps him a ton.
No doubt. Do you think, this is a loaded question
at
this point in the show, and I know Rice is on the graphic below us right now, but is Tulane the most complete team in the conference right now? Outside of Army? I mean, even including Army and Navy and some of these others.
I know. I mean, again, loaded question. They look very complete right now, right? Good. Offensively, defensively.
I'll take that as an answer.
Yeah. I'm going to add a little bit more to it, though. Okay. This is why I like this week of games, because I'm going to keep saying it. I think I've already said it twice. But there are so many matchups this week that are going to start telling us who is the most complete team. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question that way, but you're going to start seeing people match up a little bit differently and against better opponents. That's going to allow them to say, okay, this team might be better offensively or defensively.
Well, let's talk about a matchup that's going to tell us a lot about that. How about the North Texas Mean Green and the Memphis Tigers this week? Game. North Texas this season outscoring opponents 135-63, not overall, not over the course of a couple of weeks. That's over the second half only this season. And they did so in a phenomenal come-from-behind victory in the rain against the Florida Atlantic Gals. I think this was my favorite game of the year outside of maybe Rice and UTSA, which is funny because they were happening simultaneously. They were happening at the same time, and I was flipping back and forth between the two of them. But North Texas gets the job done. They improved to 5-1 for the first time since 2018, and it matches their best start in program history, going all the way back to when they were 5-0-1 back in 1967. So there's a lot going on with North Texas right now. But this is the best test that they've had inside their conference. Their one loss was against Power 4 Texas Tech, who, of course, took things into their own hands out in Lubbock and made North Texas pay. But watching this game showed me that North Texas has the grit and the ability on defense. They gave up 37 points, but they got the stops when they needed to.
And I think that's what it comes down to, again, at this point in the season, is can you win football games? It doesn't have to be pretty. This is the part where people are going to start getting banged up. You're going to have people stepping up in roles that maybe they wouldn't have been playing at the beginning of the year. Also, there was weather in this game. Florida rain is no joke, and I feel like some of those second half points were definitely helped as that ball started to dry off a little bit. It got a little bit clearer, and I think that when you're talking about grit and determination, Mean Green definitely showed that. Now they have a tough opponent coming up. I mean, not to take anything away from FAU, though, as well, because they played incredibly tough as well, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I want to kind of outline how this game finished up. North Texas was down by 10 with 4:21 left in the game. No problem for Eric Morris and company. DT Sheffield has 2 touchdowns in over a minute and 40 seconds worth of game time. Chandler Morris finishes with over 330 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. It was a crucial interception, but it was DT Sheffield that stepped up, and you talked about it. They were missing Damon Ward, who's their best receiver talent-wise, and he's been in and out with multiple injuries throughout the year. They're down their top 3 running backs. What happens? Shane Porter steps up. He has a huge carry down the stretch of 30-plus yards that puts them into position to either tie or take the lead. Of course, they ended up taking the lead because of what DT Sheffield can give you either in the red zone or just from a big play threat, and he was phenomenal on returns as well. All of those averages and those numbers don't even include the return ability that he has shown on special teams as well. This is a team that I feel like embodies the aggressive and fighting spirit of their head coach. Eric Morris is a guy who's always kind of been the underdog. He's been a guy, he was a smaller receiver at Texas Tech. He was a guy who was a coordinator at times along the way, on his way into a head coaching role at Incarnate Word. Then he took a step back. He went back to a coordinator position at Washington State in order to take a step forward to be the head coach at North Texas. He's always been that underdog, and he takes that mentality and he puts it in guys like DT Sheffield, undersized receiver, Chandler Morris, a little bit undersized quarterback, but really just a tough guy behind center. He goes through injuries, all sorts of different scenarios at Oklahoma, TCU, and then he ends up in North Texas where he's banged up at times. He's still dealing with some lingering issues, but he still is one of the best quarterbacks in one of the best systems in football. I am very impressed with what North Texas has done, and it's going to be tested again this week against Memphis.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, though, is the ability to deal with that adversity, right?
Yeah.
I think that one thing that is going to help them against Memphis is the fact that they can do everything that you just said, and the fact that they are being led by Eric Morris. Because as somebody who played for a coach who kind of embodied something very similar, when you know that your coach has been an underdog before, and that you are maybe one of those not as highly touted recruits, like, you want to run through a brick wall for that coach that picked you and is putting all of their faith and effort into you. And I think going up against a team where, you know, maybe at the beginning of the season, you look at this North Texas Memphis lineup, right? And matchup, sorry, not lineup. And you're like, oh, I don't know if this is going to be a game that I'm going to tune into. Well, now it becomes one. And now North Texas might have looked like the underdog, right? So you have that little chip on your shoulder that you're ready to rock and roll behind a coach who's ready to put his faith in you. I think that there's a lot to be said about that, and we're going to look at the numbers in a little bit too. But I think the biggest thing here is who's going to be the tougher team, and that's who's going to be victorious on after this game.
In terms of early lines, North Texas 10.5-point underdogs against Memphis on the road. So something to keep in mind moving forward as a team that has taken that underdog mentality and turned it into a rally cry. I'm very excited to see this matchup. But you mentioned Florida Atlantic. I do. I feel for Cam Fancher. Fancher had the best game of his career, in my opinion, and of definitely in terms of his game. I mean, he led his team down the field with a vengeance. This is a Fancher who had, before this game, his previous high in terms of passing yards was 193 yards. First multi-touchdown game of the year. Took command of the offense with a season high in almost every single category, Maria. And yet they still end up in a losing fashion. It wasn't because of him. He did throw the late pick, and I know he just kind of ran out of time. I think if this was a game that had another minute and a half on the clock, Florida Atlantic doesn't have to press at the end. They're able to drive downfield and probably score again. It just so happened that North Texas had the football last.
I know, and I think it just makes it that much tougher because we just saw the graphic with his number, 351 yards. It's really tough to lose a football game when you rack up that kind of yardage. And I just think, like you said, he never looked phased. He looked so confident. And honestly, the FAU offense this entire game looked confident. You saw the flea flicker play, well, we may see that later on, gave a little, another sneak peek into what the show is going to bring. But there was just so much creativity, so much confidence in that they brought in this game against North Texas. And as you said, Kyle, they just run out of a little bit of time, and then they do have to press at the end, and it's just unfortunate because this is a great football game to watch.
And this is the thing for Florida Atlantic is you can't allow the loss to hold you down any further. And you hear it all the time. Don't let a team beat you twice. They've got a matchup against UTSA this week that looks very winnable. 2-4 teams that are trying to get back on track and get actually their first conference win. So they're exactly the same in terms of their conference record right now and overall record. So with that being said, Fancher's career at Marshall was very similar. He was up and down, 300 yards in one game, 125 yards over the next 2 or 3 games. Then he hit 300 again. That up and down cannot continue if you're Fancher. Take what you did well. And Tom Herman's great at this, by the way. I think 2 great head coaches who have had struggling football teams, Tom Herman and Jeff Traylor, matching up against each other again this week. But the way that they have to outline their quarterbacks for success, that's going to be whoever wins this matchup between UTSA and Florida Atlantic.
And you saw both quarterbacks from, both losing teams this past week have good games. We already talked about
too.
Yeah, we talked about some of his numbers already. And Fancher, again, it's that roller coaster. It's like, how can you level it out, right? And so I think that if I'm a player in the situation, or if I'm a coach looking at my quarterback, seeing that track record, okay, what makes you go up and down? Is it the mentality? Are you, again, letting a team beat you twice? How can you figure out where to get his mind right so that he can have those 300-plus yard games? Because the physical component is there, right? But as most athletes will tell you, that's the easiest part of the game for most people. It's that thing between the ears that you got to get right.
Yeah, got to be better because, like I said, with Tom Herman and the struggling FAU team, Tom Herman's not a bad head coach, everybody, just so you know. Same thing with Jeff Traylor. Jeff Traylor had a team that was picked to finish second in the conference, and they've underachieved to this point. But when you have both of these teams together on the field in a matchup like this, desperation's going to win for someone. One of these two teams is going to get past that desperation and get on the other side. I think right now I would probably lean Florida Atlantic because of the defense. The defense has played well. I know they just give up 41 points against North Texas. Don't get me wrong. But their numbers are more so points allowed per game. You can see it there, 26.5. But also their turnover margin was going into it a +3. They've had now 11 turnovers, I believe, on the season, which was one of the top third of the NCAA at the moment. They can take the football away, and UTSA has been a team that will give it up, as well as you can see from the minus turnover margin.
Yeah, we've seen that. You see it on the numbers right there. But just as you said, UTSA has been struggling with some of those turnovers, and I think that FAU also showed out pretty well. I mean, I think that defensively the numbers look good, but I also think offensively they have some momentum that they can build on. I think a little less so on the UTSA side. So I think that FAU has a slight advantage in this matchup, but again, who's ever the most desperate is going to win this football game.
It's going to be a fun one, too.
I'm excited about it.
Kind of along those same lines, we opened the show talking about contenders and pretenders. These are two pretenders right now that are trying to work their way back into the pretender category into the contender category.
There's still a lot of game. Like, that's the thing. Like, I know it's week 8, but there's still so much conference play to be had.
Most teams are 2 games, 3 games in the conference play.
Yeah. So I just think that, like, even the people that we're considering quote unquote pretenders right now still have a chance to maneuver their way up in the standings.
Just along with that point, let's look at FAU's next couple of games. South Florida, East Carolina, Temple, Charlotte, Tulsa. They could get to 6 wins and be bowl eligible very easily out of that group. UTSA on the other side might be a little bit tougher. They've got FAU this week, Tulsa, winnable game, but then they go Memphis, North Texas, Temple, Army. That Temple game might be one of those games they can win, but right now Memphis, North Texas, and Army are playing better than UTSA. So still time to get right on both sides, but it starts this week for Jeff Traylor and Tom Herman. Whoever falls in this matchup will be at a significant disadvantage to try and get to bowl eligibility. And then you've got to really climb your mountain from that point forward. Now, we've got ourselves a little North Texas Memphis. We just talked a little bit North Texas. But the Memphis Tigers back into hammer time. They love this. Do you like the stone smashing?
Okay, so I know we talked about it a little bit about the danger of the stone smashing, but I will say I feel like this falls under my line of pettiness, right? Like not pettiness in like a bad way. Like I like the creativity of like I'm gonna assert my dominance and like hammer time, you know?
Yeah.
I kind of
break
like
the
it.
stone.
I mean, I don't want to get anything in my eye. I would wear like a hard hat and goggles if I was gonna like smash that stone down. Also, like I have a bum shoulder, you know, from playing an overhand throwing sport. So I might not be the best choice, but man, I'd have a lot of fun with that. That looks really fun.
Here's the thing. If I would have known you would have talked about this, I would have found a way to get Zach Fisher to open up some stone, put a stone in front, and then we could have smashed it on the podcast. Maybe next week. Maybe next week.
Do you think that's a liability issue, though?
No, absolutely
not. Okay,
we
we just make our own rules.
I'm a freelancer. I don't need
that. Okay. Might be a little bit different for me. We'll have to check with maybe compliance on that one. I'm not sure.
Exactly. So Memphis gets the job done against South Florida, but it wasn't necessarily the convincing way that we anticipated. It looked convincing early, Maria. It didn't look so late.
No, I know, and I think the score was kind of skewed, right? Because you see the big differential, and again, the Memphis defense, which we've already touched on a little bit, they looked really good the entire game, but there were some moments where their offense I was questioning a little bit, you know? So I think getting that last touchdown towards the end to make it 21-3, like that made it a little bit bigger of a difference. But I just think defense looked really good. I still have some questions on the offensive side.
Yeah, and I think the Memphis defense is about as good as they come in the American. I think you could put them with Army, Tulane, Memphis, I mean, those are probably your top 3 defensive units in the conference. And I think there's an opportunity for a couple to kind of get up into that same mentality. But right now it's those 3 and everybody else. Navy's kind of around there, but Navy even gave up 40-plus points to Memphis. Right. It can happen. I think when it comes to what happened in South Florida, and by the way, our thoughts and prayers still with everybody in the Tampa community. They moved the game to Orlando because of the hurricane, Hurricane Milton going through the Central Florida spot, and they ended up moving it to Orlando. So it was kind of a weird atmosphere, emptier stadium, late switch. But Memphis came out firing. They looked like a team that was happy to be back on the football field. They scored twice in under 10 minutes, including a fumble recovery. Then the next few drives, it looked like South Florida was a team that was tired of playing bad defense. They looked like they had a chip on their shoulder to get it done. Unfortunately for South Florida, no Byron Brown, and the offense had no rhythm. Not that Byron Brown is the only thing on offense. We talked about their explosiveness from the Bulls' offensive unit previously. But without Byron Brown, they did not have it. They had fumbles in the red zone. They gave the ball back. They had multiple opportunities to cut it to a 1-score, 2-score game. They give the ball back. You can't afford those mistakes in a game and against a team like Memphis, and we saw that in Week 7.
Well, that's the one thing that we talked about going into this matchup was, will South Florida's offense find a rhythm?
Yeah.
And that was going to be the key. And it does become so difficult when your quarterback, who's the commander of that entire offense, is out, right? So it's just finding the next man up to step in. Defensively, as you said, they looked good. They had some stops, and I did like the way that Memphis came out strong as well. Just like they looked how a team should look coming off a bye, right? Yeah. You never know how it's going to go. Like, are you going to be down a little bit? But they did. They came out aggressive, and so I think both teams could take some good out of this, and also maybe have to go back to the drawing board on one or two places.
I think so. And I think if I'm Ryan Silverfield, and I'm not in the locker room with Memphis, they're happy. They're smashing the hammer, doing all the things because they won the game. It did look fun. They won the game. That's bottom line. They got it done, and the defense played great. But I think if you're Ryan Silverfield, you go back to that film and you say, we left something on the field. Mm-hmm. You can't necessarily leave something on the field against teams like North Texas and Tulane if they want to get where they want to go. And let me say it this way. This Memphis Tigers defense will be the key to getting Memphis where they want to go, which is ultimately the college football playoff. Right now, they're on the outside of the AP top 25 looking in. They haven't been receiving votes, which, by the way, I think is a travesty.
I was going to say, we could go on a whole tangent about that.
I will go on a tangent for it. The one loss from Memphis was by a 12-point margin on the road against a Navy team that is now ranked. That is a ranked football team with the Navy midshipmen. Your other wins was at that point in time against a ranked Florida State. I know Florida State and the Seminoles do not look like they should have been ranked in the first place. Don't get me wrong. But this is a 5-1 football team that was at least receiving votes or ranked in whatever poll you want to reference early in the season. They have an elite level defense, allowing 24 rushing yards against a team like South Florida that wants to establish the run. I believe this Memphis team is still good enough to make the college football playoff. Do they have competition? Absolutely. They have Boise State that's up there. They have UNLV that's up there. They have some of these other non-Power 4 conference teams that they have to defeat at some point, at least in terms of outpacing them later in the year. They have to run the table in order to do so. Memphis is good enough to do it, and it starts this week against North Texas.
Yeah, I think you kind of took all the words out of my mouth, and I'd like the rant because I agree with you, right? Like, the one loss that they have is against a very good Navy team that we've been talking about, that we've been hyping up for the last, I've been here for 2 weeks now, but for you,
the last 2 weeks.
For the last 2 weeks, I have been hyping up that Navy squad, and I just think that I'm excited to see what Memphis does. But again, as you said, a good test against a North Texas team that's playing really well also.
This is my favorite game of the week. North Texas and Memphis. Yeah. This is, if we had a KY's game of the week, this would be it. The best offense, in my opinion, in the conference because of how deep they are. And you can take the numbers however you want to take them. They've put up phenomenal numbers no matter who they've played, except for maybe Texas Tech. But 41 points per game is no slouch. However, this could be the best defense in the conference. 16 points per game from Memphis. They are not allowing anybody to run the football almost at all. And look at the turnovers, 12 takeaways this season for the Memphis defense. These last 2 years, these two teams have played. Once as conference foes last year, 45-42. That was a down North Texas team that at the time was Apogee Stadium. In that moment, 45-42, they made it a game, and it forced Seth Hennigan in his hometown of Denton, Texas, to drive down the field and put together a game-winning drive. The year before that, as non-conference opponents in Memphis, it was 44-34, again, a down North Texas team challenging Memphis down the stretch, and ultimately they pulled away and won by 10 points. This year, it's not a down North Texas team. Very capable North Texas team, very capable offense. It's whether or not the Mean Green defense can get the stops necessary to slow down Memphis. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to be the decider on who wins or loses this game, because both offenses are capable,
right,
but Memphis has the defense. And right now, North Texas doesn't have that defense, but their offense is so good, they may be able to make up the discrepancy.
Yeah, I think that graphic pretty much said it all, right? Strength versus strength, a great offense versus one of the best defenses. Yeah. And again, it's funny because you think of the oldest saying, and maybe it's not the oldest saying, I'm thinking it's one of the oldest sayings in sports of defense wins championships, right? Mm-hmm. So does it come down to that Memphis defense being a little bit better numbers-wise than the North Texas defense? I don't know, because that offense has looked so good, and they're coming off a big victory as well.
I'm not going to make my pick right now. Because
okay, I'm not making a pick either.
I was going to ask you.
Go ahead. I'll think about it.
I was going to ask you who you're going to pick.
Who am I going to pick? I'll defer till later.
Okay.
I made you ask me instead.
Yeah,
Just wanted
I was about to say.
Keep you on your toes.
Yeah, that's fair. But I am undecided. I really am. I don't know who I'm going to pick in this game, because I think it will be one of the best games of the year, and coming off of the heel of two of the best games of the year that we just talked about a little bit as well. So lots to mull over when it comes to Memphis, North Texas, Rice, Tulane. One of the best weeks in the conference, and I think of all of those teams, there's going to be ways to get better along the way. But there's still one team that's really pacing everybody, and that's the Navy midshipmen and Army. We'll talk about Army here in a second. But if I've learned anything right now, Maria Trivelpeice, it is do not overlook Charlotte.
I agree with you.
What do you think about this matchup?
Well, see, I think if you would have asked me this 3 weeks ago, I wouldn't have thought a lot about this matchup.
Same here.
We saw Charlotte and the way that they played ECU. They also get a bye week. And I think at this point in the season, the bye weeks become so helpful because it's inevitable. People are going to be banged up. And so I just loved the way that Charlotte ran the ball against ECU. Mm-hmm. And I think Navy's defense is very good. Don't get me wrong. But I think they're both coming off byes. And I think Navy has such a tough schedule coming up with Charlotte and then the games after Charlotte that it could become a game where if they don't take it seriously enough, they can really overlook Charlotte and put them in a bad position. But I think 49ers are playing well. Mm-hmm. I think obviously Navy's playing well. I think this might be one of my most looked forward to games for this weekend because I think that things can happen. I'm going to leave it at that. I'll let you weigh in.
You're not going to make a bold prediction?
I'm not making a bold prediction yet. Okay. I'm just saying I think that you can't take Charlotte lightly if you're Navy, and I think Charlotte's hungry. I mean, we talked to some of their players last week on the show, and I think that was one of like the resounding answers was that, okay, Navy's really good, but like look what we just did in a rivalry game, the way that we ran the ball. Yeah. It wasn't just like one-off thing. They just scored and scored and scored with speed and a lot of different options. Yeah,
the one thing in this matchup is Navy is just built differently right now. Now, their defense is susceptible. Navy will give up points, and I think the run game from Charlotte will have some success. I really do. And then the way that they, like you said, the way they ran against East Carolina, very impressive. They ran well against Rice, too, even though they didn't put up 55 points in that matchup as well. They've won 3 of their last 4, and it's all been predicated off of the ground game. So if a team is going to beat Navy, it's by at least challenging the time of possession and challenging taking care of the football. Charlotte's been better at taking care of the football over these last couple of weeks. Navy is priding themselves on taking away the football. The +7 in the turnover margin is crucial for the midshipmen's success because they win time of possession and then they steal a possession or 2 from you. By that point, it's game. Blouses. It's done. I think at that point, that's where Charlotte can get in trouble. But if they take care of the football and they run the ball effectively, you've got yourself a 1-score game late. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Horvath is back on the field. I want Horvath for Heisman to continue rolling in the right direction. And I think he has a chance to be phenomenal again. He's a great passer. He's so efficient. Give me some more Horvath this week, and we'll see how it goes.
Horvath for Heisman. I'm on board with that. I told you. I already
on the hype train. Beep beep.
Horvath for Heisman.
Or the hype ship.
Hype
because they're shipmen. Yep.
That was a dad joke.
It was.
That
absolutely.
was a dad joke.
Yep.
Now that you're a dad, you have dad jokes.
No doubt.
What was your best dad joke that you've developed since having
that
children?
One right there. That's the only one.
That's the only
That's
one.
the first one I've ever said.
All right, we'll clip it and make sure that it gets posted everywhere. Then.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Let's talk about the other military academy that's playing phenomenal. Well, I said Horvath for Heisman. How about Bryson for Heisman? I think you've got Army and ECU in a game, kind of like how Navy and Charlotte match up in an interesting way. I think Army and ECU match up in an interesting way as well.
Yeah, you were talking to me about this, and the way that you presented it, I was like, okay, I can see it. Mm-hmm. I think that Army is playing just so well right now, and like Bryson Daly, I can't. I'm going to give away another top play if I say the play that I'm thinking about.
We can only have like one top
I know.
play
I'm
remaining.
not. We'll talk about it later. But like some of his runs from this past weekend against UAB were just so strong. Maybe we're gonna see it right.
Yeah,
there it is.
Right there.
That stiff arm. Oh my goodness! Like when I watched that live, that was another one where I jumped up off my couch, and I think SportsCenter also agreed with 90% of the population on this that he is just built different when you want to talk about toughness and his strength and his ability to run the football. And so that's where I'll disagree with you a little bit in some of the things that you listed, and I'll let you tell everyone why you think this is going to be an interesting matchup between these two teams, and I'll add my point.
Here's the thing about ECU. They pride themselves on scoring points. They pride themselves on flying high on offense, and they can definitely do so. They haven't been perfect. They've had their turnovers. They've had their struggles, and we saw that against Charlotte whenever they ended up with 24 points and were down significantly at halftime. If they get off to a hot start, the Pirates specifically, then I have a lot more faith in the way that they can keep this close. The problem is Army is fantastic. Probably the best team in the country right now in terms of scoring on their opening drives. So hot start, that's Army as a whole. That's Army as a program. But you've got to execute if you're ECU. You've got to have some success. You cannot turn the football over because just like Navy, Army can run the football better than anybody. They pride themselves on the time of possession game, and then the defense. My goodness, this defense is so good. But I like ECU the way they spread people out. If they keep with the John David Baker mentality of let's get Jake Garcia rolling, if they go with him as a starter. I know there's kind of been some questions.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point.
If they go with him, go with him. Stay with him. Push your chips to the middle of the table with Jake Garcia. That's how I think you keep this one close.
Yeah, you have. In my opinion, I think that, and again, we're not at practice every single day.
Absolutely.
We don't know what's going on internally. Yeah. But for me, I think the biggest thing is to just pick who your starter is going to be, and like you said, roll with them, because I think you need that consistency. If you want your offense to fly high, if you want the offense to be aggressive and just jump out to a fast start, then I think that you need to know who's going to be leading that offense. And so I think that if Jake Garcia is the guy, like, go with him for sure. And he did show some really good moments against Charlotte 2 weeks ago, and then they took him out. So I think that if he's the guy against Army, that could be a really good option for the Pirates, but I'm just interested to see who they go with, and then how do they respond when Army kind of plays their game and jumps out to that hot start.
Yeah.
That's going to be my biggest question, because I think that's a big reason why Army has been so good, because people get flustered. They score on that opening drive, and then you're scared, like, oh my goodness, like Bryson Daly's going to run through my throat, and then they never really recover based on what I've seen in the last couple of weeks. And so I think it's less about, is Army going to score on that opening drive, or are they going to get out to a hot start, and more about, okay, if they do, so what? There's still a ton of football left to be played. I want to see teams respond better to that opening drive against the Black Knights.
You got to be able to respond.
Yeah.
And if you're going to get punched in the mouth early, Army loves to do that. They're so physical. I mentioned it in the first All-American show. They're built on physicality and discipline. And not only that, but we've seen the speed. I mean, Kanye Udo's been fantastic. You've got a number of guys outside of Daly that have significant speed. That's why they are a top 25 team in the country. If Army scores first, I don't have faith that ECU can keep pace. Yeah. If ECU scores first and they do so in an effective manner, and maybe they get a stop early, like they don't allow Army to score on their opening drive, I think it's crucial that ECU gets off to a hot start. If they do, I think they can keep it tight. Do I think they'll win the game? Probably not. I still think it's Army just because they're the more talented football team right now. But ECU has a shot. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think even again, I'm excited about it. And I'll add one more thing. I just even think in that game against Charlotte, like we talk so much about the way that Charlotte's offense performed, but there were some moments where ECU looked like they could get back into the game. And so I'll agree with you on that point. I think the offense has the potential to at least stay in that game, but it's either determines the response or how they're going to get out to a hot start first.
I know something else you'll agree with me on.
Ooh.
This is the best week of American Athletic Conference football so far. Here's the full schedule, starting with page number 1, because, yes, we have 2 pages of American Conference football.
Best week.
We just talked about ECU and Army. Tulsa-Temple's kind of an interesting matchup. 2 teams trying to get back on track in their own right. We mentioned Charlotte and Navy. I think that left side of the graphic, interesting matchups for 2 unbeatens. Navy and Army, both of which can be either outpaced or outplayed by the other side. It's whether or not Army or Navy can keep doing what they've been doing well, and that's run the football and force turnovers. And I think if they're able to do that, we'll see Navy and Army continue to be ranked, continue to be in that undefeated conversation. And then, of course, Florida Atlantic and UTSA, 2 two-win teams that one team will be 2-5, and their season at that point looks like it is a complete wash.
Yes. I'm interested to watch that one as well. I mean, again, best week of American Conference football, and I'm excited about it. So much so that we have an entire second page. You have UAB in South Florida, North Texas and Memphis, and then Rice and Tulane to round it out. Taking a look at those, Kyle, which one on this page are you going to be locked in with?
Well, of course, I said North Texas earlier, and this is a game that's so intriguing that they flexed it to the ESPNU side of things, so it's back on ESPN linear, and I think it's worthy of doing so. 2 5-1 teams, one of which will leave with bowl eligibility, but I'm really interested to see UAB in South Florida in a different way, too. It's 2 teams that have just been run through with injuries, have been run over by really good offenses, and have faced tough competition early in their slate. One of those 2 teams is going to get a much-needed win. Much needed win. Maybe even more so than the Florida Atlantic UTSA game that I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to be watching that one highly intensified as well.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one as well. I think it's going to be, again, 2 teams that have just really been run through. I think one of them is going to come out victorious, obviously, but I think that might change a little bit of the season. Maybe not completely turn it around, but maybe point them in a direction that they'd rather be than where they are right now. Yeah,
no doubt about it. So you wanted me to outline. I've been doing this thing on Twitter, by the way. If you haven't caught on to it at all, follow me at Kyle_Youmans on Twitter, YOUMANS. And I've been putting together my predictions and previews. So every week on Twitter, X, whatever it is now. Thanks, Elon. But I put together a thread of my predictions first, and then each game I give a little snippet and preview
it's
of
very
what
good.
I expect.
I will pump it for you.
Oh, thank you.
I really like it.
Yeah.
Before I even got here, I was following along with it. I was like,
Nice.
oh, I'm learning all about everything American Conference football because Kyle's putting it out.
Yeah, but you can see my record down there. When I started this, I really wasn't doing it for any kind of recognition. I was just trying to provide some extra content for American Conference faithful out there, which, by the way, to the guy who was on College Game Day this past week, you're a real hero.
Right,
you're a real
right.
one.
I love that. My goodness.
If
yes.
he doesn't watch the show, then I'm going to be offended because that's phenomenal. I love it.
He needs to make an appearance. Like, I feel like that'd be such a good guest on the show.
My DMs are open. Shoot me a DM if you're listening. If you were on the show and you were the one at College Game Day in Eugene, Oregon with the American stand, we stand together, and the American Conference logo with an American Conference hat, an American Conference hoodie. He was decked out. I love it. Shoot me a DM. We'll find a way to get you on the show, one way or the other.
Number 1 fan right there. I loved that when I saw that early in the morning. I was like, let's go.
It was perfect. Phenomenal. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I posted it on Twitter. So when I started this, I wasn't doing it for any kind of recognition, but I'm 41-14 not bad, and it's gotten better. I'm 24-6 since week 3. I've got some games here some teams here that I want to either be happy with or not so happy with. My favorite teams picked so far: Army, USF, Temple, and FAU. I've been perfect when selecting all of those teams so far. Thank you guys for doing exactly what I thought you would do all the way along. I've got 2 teams I got a bone to pick with though: UTSA and ECU. I was very high on both of these teams. UTSA was a preseason favorite for a reason. ECU is a high-flying offense, or at least I thought they were at times. I've gotten them wrong 3 times each. So out of my 14 losses, they make up 6 of them.
Ooh.
By them too. So I've got a little bone to pick with UTSA and ECU. But guess what, guys? All can be forgiven if you just make sure I'm perfect this week. I haven't had a perfect week yet. I've had at least 1 loss in every single week so far predicting these games. I've got to be better this week and try and get a 0 in that loss column.
You're asking, you're telling them that they could be forgiven, but I think there's a team that you still need one more apology to, that you already gave an apology to, that you picked against probably a little too much.
Who's that?
Remember you gave him a nice formal apology?
You talking about Navy?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm making up for the formal apology.
Really?
Because of the Horvath for Heisman thing.
Does it even out? We should ask all the Navy fans.
I need a T-shirt is what I need. I need a Horvath for Heisman.
A Horvath
t-shirt.
for Heisman T-shirt.
I'll wear it on the show.
Okay.
If anybody wants to send me something.
Everybody heard that.
I'll wear it on the show.
You'll wear it on the show.
Absolutely.
All right, Horvath for Heisman.
Horvath for Heisman.
All right,
baby.
all
Let's
right.
make it
So
work.
and then the apology will be finalized to the Naval Academy.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing: I haven't picked against Navy since that week. I tried to get cute with it, and that 1 week I haven't picked against them that week. We'll see if I pick against them this week. We'll see.
Ooh,
I don't know. I don't know if I want to
okay.
issue another apology.
Well, I mean, everybody's gonna have to follow your Twitter now, or X, or whatever.
If you haven't already, just hop on it. Why not? We have some fun, and that's the thing is like part of this show is providing interesting content and for people some information from people that want to digest American Conference stuff. We have so much fun recording these shows. So I want to continue that fun into the weekend of watching college football. Everybody's getting ready for their college slate, and we have those 2 pages worth of games. I'm excited for the weekend, and that's just another way for me to show it.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I think I'm going to be so locked into so many of these games this weekend. It's going to be a fun one for sure. And then everybody's going to have to listen to us next week because we're going to have so much to break down.
Yep.
So
long You're going
episode.
to Birmingham, or you're going to South Florida.
I am. I'll be in South Florida. So if you want to tune into that game, you'll actually get to see me, wave at me at your television screen, and then I'll be watching all the other games once my game is done.
Yeah.
So
I've got a question for you.
Ooh,
How was Basketball Media Day?
Oh my goodness. We don't have enough time to talk about how awesome Basketball Media Day was, but it was incredible. We got to talk to so many different teams, the personalities. I will just say this. We have some great personalities in the American Athletic Conference. We had some fun. We talked basketball. We did some rapid fire. I'll ask you a question I asked everyone.
Okay.
Who would you not take with you on a deserted island? This was the real, Who's not going to help you survive? You got a friend in mind? I asked them about their teammates.
Oh.
We'll have some more of that content coming
So,
later.
so I can't take this person. Like
they would not help you survive.
Useless.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough. I try and surround myself with people that would help me along the way. Maria Trivelpeice. I would not take Maria.
Rude. See,
the pettiness. the pettiness would be too much.
Would not help. So
one
of the best answers to that was from the UAB men's basketball team. So we'll take a look at that. But I think first we should take a look at the men's preseason poll because they are picked to win the conference again after winning last season. The Blazers looked really, really good. And the preseason player of the year in Yaxel Lendeborg.
I love watching Lendeborg play. I got the chance to watch him a couple times last year. He was the best player in the American, in my opinion, last year. I thought he was fantastic. I know South Florida had some guys, and I know Memphis had some guys, but this is a UAB team that has earned this mindset with their great year and the run that they had through Fort Worth, through Dickies Arena, and then ultimately taking the shot at March Madness. And I thought one of the clips that the Americans showed this past week on social was really cool, and he talked about how it felt like a movie playing in March Madness and being around it, and it made me feel I felt a piece of that. I've never gotten the chance to play in March Madness, but when you watch one shining moment, you watch you grow up watching the Final Four and the tip-offs, and Sweet 16s and big upsets and all sorts of different things. To finally be a part of that had to be so special, and UAB had that opportunity last year. Now, it was a down year for Memphis. They are super talented, super loaded. They may be the deepest roster, but can they rebound in the big way? They were supposed to be really good last year, and of course things didn't necessarily work out for Memphis in terms of winning again and making a run. It was a down year for Memphis. They're going to be back. South Florida, a lot of people thought they overachieved last year. The Bulls maybe showed a little of that by losing early in the tournament to that UAB squad. But then you've got Wichita State, upstarter, young team. They've got some spunk, man. They are swaggy. And I love this Wichita State team because of what they did. A lot of times you'll see teams that make a run in the tournament, and then you think about that moving forward. If they keep their pieces from transferring, they keep teams together, coaching staffs together, they've got a shot to do something special. And then a couple other teams further down the list. I thought East Carolina, I thought that's too low for the Pirates. The Pirates have a first-team all-conference member in R.J. Felton. Michael Schwartz has been around that program for a little bit of time. They know how to – he's a phenomenal coach. X's and O's-wise, he is as knowledgeable as anybody that you'll see. And now he's finally starting to get some recruits to surround those guys. They've been decimated with injuries from year in, year out. I think ECU's a little too low for number 9. Same can be said for Tulsa. They're young. They can kind of be a bit erratic. They can be one way or the other. They're so talented, but they're young all the way across the board. Eric Conkle, who used to be the head coach at Louisiana Tech down there in Tulsa, he does a phenomenal job. I think he has a chance to take a step forward with that program. And then UTSA down in that 11th spot. Austin Clonch is their new head coach, hired back in April, March, whenever they hired him. He comes from possibly my favorite new young coaching tree in college basketball. He was the assistant at Alabama last year. And I think what we've seen from the Crimson Tide, what we've seen from that coaching staff and all sorts of different things, he has the experience and he has the mentality to lead UTSA, and it's going to be a fun couple of years. Now, it won't be immediate. It's going to take some time, but it reminds me of when North Texas hired a guy named Grant McCasland not too long ago. They hired Grant McCasland after a couple of losing seasons, but they're in a great market with great basketball. He's going to tap into that market. He's going to recruit very well. He's going to hit the transfer portal hard, and he's going to provide a player-first mentality and an X's and O's approach on the court that is going to elevate this Roadrunner program. And then I think the rest is history. You're going to see UTSA relevant again, and I think Austin Clonch is a big reason for it.
Yeah, we're calling it right here on All-American. You have a really good resume out there.
Couple years. Yeah.
All right. So it's noted here. I mean, I'm also really excited about Temple, too. I feel like that's one team that, like, literally
Speaking of spunk.
You're right?
Yeah.
Makes the championship game after being so lowly seated. And I think that was something that the guys talked a lot about on Media Day, was just the way that they can build upon that. And so that's another team I'm really excited for. I mean, I'm excited to watch all of American Conference basketball because, I mean, there were some fun petty quotes too that we want to even get into, but since that's becoming my brand, the pettiness, some teams were really excited to play certain opponents for different reasons. So
nice.
We'll preview some of that content as the season gets closer. But again, we talked to UAB men and they were so much fun. We'll have to take a look at everything that they said. Joining the set now, we have Yaxel, Lendeborg, and Toney from UAB. Guys, you are the preseason favorites to win the American Athletic Conference. How exciting is that, and what pressure does it bring?
I mean, it's amazing to have that, being said. We don't really call it pressure, There's a lot of rumors and stuff that goes around too, so we don't really want to fall into all the internet stuff. But we know what we did last year, and hopefully we can, move forward from that and play like we have nothing to prove and nothing to gain. I guess if it makes sense. But, yeah.
No, totally. And Toney, what are your thoughts on that?
We know what we got to do, and we know what it takes. Feel me? So we're not gonna get into all the internet and all that.
You definitely know what it takes. You've been at UAB for 5 years. In the era of transfers and everybody's going to different schools, what makes you stay?
Just the culture and being welcomed with open arms and the love and winning.
You talk about that culture. It's led by Coach Kennedy, somebody that you posted on your Instagram you're very fond of. So can you tell me what he is like to play for?
I mean, he going to get on you. He's going to get on you. He's going to be hard on you, but he only going to try to push you to the farthest extent that you can go to. And he want to help. He want you to grow no matter what. So that's really what it was with me.
I love that. I love that. And Yaxel, how about you? What do you like about him?
I love that he's a player's coach. You know, he's done it at the highest level as well, and he really sees things that we don't see and that some other coaches don't see. So it's really nice to have that in your corner, and he brings like extra belief in you that you didn't think you had. So it's a great guy to have around your corner.
I feel like he's definitely brought some belief to you. You were incredibly successful last year. You're the preseason player of the year this year. So when you hear that, what does that mean to you?
It still doesn't feel real to me. You know, I never would have thought. I always say that in like every interview I get. Who would have thought I'd be here and stuff? But yeah, when I first committed here, he was having like dreams of me being an NBA player, being a first rounder, and we didn't think it would turn out like this. You know, especially me. I just said when I was gonna come, just be a role player, don't suck. You know, and ended up turning around, and him putting that belief in me really made me feel better as a human. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah, definitely don't suck. I think that's good advice for anyone. But, you know, when you talk about the belief that Coach had in you, what else do you think helped you get to the level of play that you achieved last year?
Well, I would say the situation I was in, because it was me and Chris. We both came in from JUCO, so we really had a lot of room to make mistakes. As far as if we would have went to another school where they already had those positions filled out, then we wouldn't be able to play through those mistakes. And he let me play through those. He gave me reasoning behind what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, and pretty much kept me mellow-headed because I was really getting too low on myself in the beginning of the year. But, you know, he helped me break through that. And once I had the first good game, he applauded me but made it, like, known that that's not all I can do. So he just helped me keep a mellow head,
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Yeah.
Now, both of you, again, are returning, and you have some other key players as well. You won last season. How have you been gelling so far in the offseason to continue, you know, a repeat title?
We've been gelling very well. We still have work to do. I feel like we have a chance to be back where we were, and I feel like that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, and what do you think, Yaxel?
We for sure reloaded. We took big losses last year with the players leaving, but, you know, Coach AK did a good job recruiting this year, and as long as we become a brotherhood like we did last year, then I think we'll be okay, too.
Yeah, we'll be just fine.
And what goes into creating that brotherhood?
I would say just
consistency.
Consistency. Speaking to each other, you know, on and off the court, obviously, not just a connection on the court, but just putting trust in each other. You know, that's
picking
big
each other
thing.
up while one number is down, and just making sure your brother is uplifted.
Yeah,
I love that. Good chemistry, uplifting each other, definitely keys to success. When you look at this upcoming season, what are some goals that you have both individually and then as a team?
Me personally, I think I need to be better on the defensive end and being more all around consistent throughout the whole year.
And then Yaxel, how about you?
Goal for myself would be being All-American this year and hopefully win Player of the Year. And team goals, we want to make it to the Final Four this year. So,
Ooh, I like that. Put it right, like we're going to mark this right now so then we can clip this when you guys are in the Final Four, right? And then we'll be like, we said this at American Athletic Conference media.
Yes,
that is the goal. So I want to talk a little bit about your baseball career, Yaxel, because we chatted a little bit about that before we went live on air. So, you know, obviously you're very successful in basketball, but tell everyone what your first love was before you.
Yeah, my first love was baseball. It was introduced to me by my grandpa who passed away. But, yeah, he took me on the field. You know, I had some cleats. My first time wearing them, I had a lot of spikes on my shoes, so it was like a funny memory to have. But yeah, I started off first base, didn't really like it too much. I was scared of the ball. Then I moved to shortstop, the infields. It was really bad for me. I was just super scared, you know.
Yeah.
Yo, bro, was you any good?
I think I was better at baseball than basketball, in my opinion.
But you were afraid of the ball?
On the infield.
Oh, okay. Like me and Toney are on the same page here. We're a little confused right now.
It's completely different.
Okay,
when I was outfield, I felt very comfortable over there, and you know, I did a good job. You know, I used to make diving catches when you didn't need to. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. So you were an unnecessary diver.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
he was trying to make like Sports Center top play, but in Little League. Okay. Toney, what was your first love, or was it always basketball?
No, it was actually football.
Really. And were you afraid of the ball in football?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay,
I was
good.
actually,
Good to know.
I think that I was like, I probably could have been a big prospect in football.
Oh, I love it.
I just stopped my senior year.
Yeah.
Some personal issues. But yeah, football, my first love.
Great. So basketball ended up working out for both of you. So baseball, you tried, and Toney played well in football. A couple more basketball questions, and then we'll get into the rapid fire. We talked about your goals for this season. Let's talk about conference play. When you look at that conference lineup, which game are we circling on our calendars? We need to see UAB play who?
Memphis.
Yes.
Ooh,
Memphis.
okay. No hesitation there.
Yes.
All right, why?
Last year we had them at their place, and then they just came, turned everything around, and really just whooped us bad.
Okay.
They played whoop that trick too. I took that kind of personal. I didn't like that, but yeah, I just that's the most exciting game for me. And playing in that atmosphere was amazing too. Something I was really happy about. So. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna pay attention to that one. Are you guys ready for some rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Favorite basketball movie?
Loving basketball.
Loving basketball.
And
Yeah,
Coach
yeah.
Carter.
Oh, Coach Carter's a good one.
Hurricane
Okay.
season.
Okay. All right.
Hurricane season.
All right. I like it. Love and basketball has been like the resounding answer so far.
Yeah.
So, but Coach Carter for sure. Pre-game meal.
Want me to be honest or?
Yeah, be honest.
Honestly, I don't eat before games.
Okay.
Like at all?
Like I eat like crackers or something like that.
Okay.
I feel heavy and sluggish when I eat.
I feel that for sure.
Okay. I'll go with some gummies. Something subtle. Yeah. Some gummies. Yeah.
Gummy.
He's
So
a
so you
kid,
wake up
bro.
in the morning and you eat crackers and you eat gummies and that's all you're fueled on.
Not in the morning. Like
Okay.
I would say like 2
Okay.
hours before the game.
Okay.
some gummies.
All right.
Yeah.
I was like, I needed to specify that.
When I wake up, I probably eat like some eggs. sausage,
Okay, and
stuff
then
like
the
that.
crackers.
Yeah,
And
then crackers.
what kind of gummies?
The
Starburst.
it's the white bag. I really don't know what it's called. It starts with an A.
Oh, that's not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Toney, can you help us out here? No, we don't know.
I don't know.
All right, well, we'll get back to you on that one. So, what is one teammate that you would not want to be stuck on a deserted island with?
Yaxel.
What?
Yaxel Lendeborg.
I'm gonna say the right answer here, and I'm gonna go with Brad.
Yeah, no.
No, don't switch it.
No, you were not. I don't think you change it.
No, I changed my mind.
Okay.
Greg.
Oh,
Greg.
Greg or Brad? Yes.
Greg
Okay,
or Brad.
can
changed
I
my
need
mind.
reasoning, and this is the one I want you to stare into the camera and tell me the reasoning why you're not going to want to be stuck with them.
Greg Gordon. Oh my gosh, this guy, he's reliable, but when it comes to life-saving things, I don't think he's very
He don't
reliable.
think properly.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
a fun guy to be around, but not like that,
Okay. All right.
Brad just too goofy, and he we could be in a serious situation and he will not take it serious.
Yeah.
So you'd be like dying, and he's
Yeah,
not helping
yeah.
anything at all.
Are you
He's
for
maybe
real?
taking some selfies or like going live on Instagram.
Yeah.
All right. So noted. That's who we don't want to be stuck with. One or two more. If you played baseball, so I was asking everybody this. So this one actually applies to you. What would your walk-up song be?
Oh,
We ready.
Ooh, okay.
We ready.
That's getting you fired up.
I would make
Yeah.
mine a goofy one, probably.
Okay.
Probably the High School Music song, "I Don't Dance."
Oh, with Corbin Blue
Yes.
and
I'll probably
yeah.
go with that because of the
Okay.
the reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you do the dance when you walked up to the plate?
I don't know it that much. I don't
Yes.
know the
Yeah,
kick and the
yes, he
turn.
would.
I know the
Okay.
kick and the turn. I can do that.
All right.
yes.
Well, we'll have to when you go to the social media room, make sure you have them record you doing the kick and the
I can
turn.
do that. I can do that.
Last one. You guys already had this experience, but you win the American Athletic Conference Championship. Now this would be your second year in a row you win it. What's the first thing you do when that buzzer sounds?
Cry.
Cry.
I cried last year like a baby.
We're gonna need video footage of that. Any close-ups? Did your video team get any close-ups?
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Tony, did you cry? I would cry.
Yeah, I was shocked
Yeah.
because it's my second one. So
Yeah.
I was really shocked.
Did you cry in the first one?
Yeah, the first one I most definitely cried instantly.
Okay.
The second one I was kind of already used to it.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I was shocked. I got 2 rings. You know what I'm saying?
I love that. So you're going for one more.
Yeah.
We'll be following along all season long. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
They were certainly fun, and there were a lot of women's teams who were so much fun at that media day, Kyle. And we'll take a look at the women's preseason poll. South Florida back on top. They have some really key components, including Romy Levy. She was hilarious. Another one that we're going to have to watch content. But when you take a look at this, who stands out to you?
Well, I think South Florida is the complete team. I think top to bottom, inside out, their ability to utilize their size as well. I mean, they are really, really talented. North Texas and Rice, I mean, that's regular season champion and postseason champion, tied for second in that poll specifically. Both of those teams were a surprise last year to a certain extent. I think North Texas kind of snuck up on some people. They were middle of the pack in the preseason poll last year. Jason Burton and company did a phenomenal job. Tamisha Lampkin was fantastic last year. She was a preseason player of the year nominee again, or honoree again this year. Neither one of these teams, North Texas nor Rice, are going to sneak up on anybody this time around. So I'm interested to see how they respond in the year coming after where they were a championship caliber ball club, both of those teams specifically. And then sticking in the Lone Star State, UTSA is a team that if they could stay healthy with some talent like Jordan Jenkins, I think she's phenomenal, the USC transfer, they underneath that tutelage and that coaching staff, they have another shot to make a run too. So with them being down at number 5, I think the expectation is that they will challenge some of those top 4 teams or so, but really lots of talent top to bottom in the women's game. Maybe not as deep team-wise. I think the men's side of the bracket, teams 1 through 11, have an opportunity to really do something special, whereas the women's side, it's mostly probably teams 1 through 8 or 9 in order to get it done, but still lots of talent up there toward the top.
Yeah, and I think when you mention those teams at the top, there is much less of a surprise this year probably, and that's one thing that the Rice women talked about was just the fact that, like, hey, people know that we're good, and so if we want to repeat as champions, we're going to have to be a little bit more locked in, and the element of surprise isn't going to help us. It's going to be our play on the court.
Yeah, it really is going to be interesting to see how how teams react, how teams do respond. Because, like I said, the target is on the back now of teams like Rice and North Texas. They didn't necessarily have that last year. So with the target on the back, it's a completely different mentality moving forward.
Yeah, and we're going to see what they said of just about how they're going to handle it. We have with us now Sussy Ngulefac and Malia Fisher from the Rice University Owls. Ladies, thank you so much for joining the set. You've done a couple different things at Media Day. What's been the most fun so far?
I think the segment we just came from,
Okay.
the outdoor courts. The weather is so nice outside.
Beautiful.
It's a nice change from Houston.
No, it is. Nice breeze. The wind was a paid actor
good
in the
mood.
pictures.
Okay, you had like the Beyonce hair?
Yeah,
was that
like
what's
it was
going?
flowing.
Oh
Wind
my
blowing.
Goofy
goodness.
pictures. It was nice.
Okay,
It was
okay.
fun.
So are they going to be on the gram later? Can we check them out?
I'm hoping so.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. We will take a look for all of those photos, and we'll make sure we like all of them, because when you have like good hair and the wind, you
It just works.
You got to use it. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So outdoor courts were a fun part of Media Day. Let's talk a little bit of basketball. You are the defending American Athletic Conference champions.
That's a nice ring, too.
Oh, yeah. Speaking
That
of rings,
is
did you
nice.
get rings yet?
Not yet.
Not
Yeah,
yet.
we can get
Ooh.
them our first home opener.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So
okay.
a few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Did you design them, or who designed them? How's it?
Did our captains
I think
have?
our captains did it with Coach.
Okay. So you haven't seen them yet?
No, we have not.
All right, I'm anxiously awaiting what they look like. That's like one of the coolest
I know.
parts about winning. You're like, you put that ring on, you're like, oh,
We're excited
for sure. For sure. So anyway, defending champions. How do you want to continue that success this season?
You want it?
Yeah, I think like a big key word for us has been consistency so far, and like I've said it multiple times, we know we have a target on our back, and we kind of take that every day from summer workouts to even now. We're focusing on stacking like good days in practice, and that just comes with our energy, our effort, how intense we're practicing, and like trying to limit our lulls, and that's just like not trying to ever be too low, try to consistently stay at where we know we can be. So
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think coaches do a good job, and we do a good job of each other not getting complacent, and that, yes, we are defending title holders, but that doesn't mean that it's guaranteed for next year, and
yeah,
we have
that
to
was
work.
last year.
Right.
Next year? Did I say last year?
No, I'm saying
No,
that
she's
was
like
last year.
that was last
That was
year.
last
We're
year.
locked in on this season, right?
Absolutely.
No, I love that, and that's exactly how you continue to win championships, right?
For
You
sure,
are always
yeah.
locked in, and you're looking to get better. One more question about that last year's championship, and then we'll talk more about what we're focused on in the now. But you were the lowest seed to ever win the American Athletic Conference, right? No, but I know you're chuckling, and I mean it in like the coolest way, right?
Yeah.
Like, what was that like? What was that mentality throughout that entire tournament, just knowing that you had the capability to win?
I mean, I think we said it the whole time. Like, we were a 10 seed, but never a 10 seed.
Yeah,
And we just said it was our revenge tour. That's
Ooh,
how we took every game. So it was our revenge tour. We were playing people like, that maybe we didn't beat in the first time around.
Right.
So we played with that extra chip on our shoulder, and being the lowest seed, it pushes you to want it even more. So.
Yeah, I love that. I revenge tour. That
That's
is.
our motto.
So does the revenge tour continue this season, or what's the motto as you head into 24-25?
I think for a lot of teams it's going to be reversed.
Yeah.
I think, like she said, there's going to be a target on our back, so it's just a new season that we have to come in and, keep our head on straight and be focused and take every game as it comes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like not necessarily a revenge tour this year, but more of proving like who we are. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's prove everyone right or wrong, because I don't really know what people think of us. I don't know if people think we can do it again. I don't know if people are like, nah, they don't got it. But whatever it is, we're gonna prove what we know we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly. And you have to stay within yourself, right? Mm-hmm. It's what you're doing. You can't focus on that outside noise. And speaking of what you are doing, how has the team been so far in responding to like these mottos and this day-by-day mentality in the off season?
Mm-hmm. Well, our biggest motto, I think, throughout this summer has been win the day. Mm-hmm. Coming in, every day is a new day. You have the opportunity to control your attitude and your effort, and just knowing that there are other teams getting better at the same time that you're working out. So if we're not getting better, that we're only hurting ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so keeping that in mind while we're working out.
Yeah, I think it's just like I said, consistently stacking days, and not every day will be perfect, but like she said, you can control our attitude and our effort, and Coach always talks about giving 110% effort, and she knows we're not always going to make shots in practice, and it's not always going to look pretty, but how hard are we working on defense and getting stops and focusing on the things we control? And I think that's a big thing that I've seen with our team this summer is our defense. Like, we've really honed in on being that defensive team while we can score, but can we also stop other teams from scoring?
Yeah, it's that old cliche, defense wins championships,
exactly.
right?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, I know it's a cliche, but when you actually think about it, you're like, oh, man,
It's
everybody
true.
who's ever told me that
true.
is so right. So let's talk a little bit about the offense. Malia, you were named on the preseason all-conference team. So when you heard that, what were some of your first thoughts?
I thought it was very exciting, very honored to be recognized among, coaches in this conference, and I think it's been a testament to what I've done throughout the 4 years, but I think also it's preseason, and not that I'm super excited to be recognized in this preseason, but I will be super ecstatic if I can be recognized in the postseason.
Yeah. I mean, it's like being grateful, but also wanting more, right?
Absolutely.
Being aggressive and kind of going for that at the end of the year. Speaking of that, what are some of your goals, both individually and as a team, for 24-25?
Well, I think the biggest goal is, getting the second ring.
Ring number 2.
Getting another championship.
Yes.
What? I don't know. This is a hard question.
I think definitely starting off on a good foot. I think last year one of our big things was we kind of hurt ourselves in the non-conference. So I think as a team, that's our first goal because, conference doesn't start till January. So the first goal is November and December. Putting ourselves in a better position because when we do win that second ring, we're going to the big dance. We want to be in a better position,
Yes.
I think personally some goals I have is just like with how I finished the season last year, I know there will be attention to like my inside game, and so that's just handling what other teams throw at me, whether that's a double team or like whatever counter they have for me, being able to handle that and still be consistent and good in what I do, but also whether that's kicking the ball out or finding my teammates and just kind of really having that flow to our offense. I think that's the biggest goal for myself.
It's like you read my mind. I was going to ask you about the end of your season last year because, man, were you on fire. So I want to know, what do you think kicked in towards the end that just kind of clicked for you and you're like, oh, man, I'm rolling right now?
Well, I think with injury, I didn't play most of the year, and so I feel like I was like so antsy. Like I was watching all year. I think I like to say I was brewing. So I was just getting ready, and then, it's just what they say, when your number is called, you have to be ready. And I think knowing myself as a player, I like to say I like to rise to the occasion. I like the pressure. I like the expectations. And so I think with that, I think a lot of people knew what I was capable of, and being able to go out there and prove it. that's just kind of how I roll.
I
don't know.
You were brewing. I like, we were talking about on our All-American show last week, teams lurking. I feel like maybe that's another one. You were lurking and you're ready to pounce right on the opportunity,
exactly.
right? All right, so we have a couple more basketball questions, and then we'll get into some nice rapid-fire fun stuff. So that's the part everybody really wants to do, right? You're like, all right, let's get to that. I want to talk, though, about the younger versions of each of you.
Oh, God.
Right? Okay.
Younger Sue?
No. We're not gonna, we won't get too in depth, but let's say 5 years old. What would 5-year-old you think about? Both of you sitting here, you already won one conference tournament championship. Now you're here under these lights, getting to talk at Media Day. What would she think?
I think 5-year-old me would think I'm pretty cool.
I know. I was going to say, like, 5-year-old me would think I'm a superstar right now. You know? You don't ever think, like, this is where you end up or this is what you end up doing. So it's honestly really just grateful and, like,
absolutely
very appreciative of the opportunities that we've had and the fact that we've won a championship and now we're here. 5-year-old me would be like, no, I'm joking.
She's like, oh my gosh, that's me.
I honestly, you just think we run kids camps all summer,
Yeah.
you know, with the younger kids and like just imagining ourselves in that position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't even.
I just got chills. Like.
Right? No, but when you actually think about it, because I feel like sometimes like you get so caught up in the everyday and the grind that you don't actually take a second to be like, oh man, I'm like living what I kind of always wanted to do. And you're just looking all around and you're like, wow, this is. So take a moment. Be proud of yourselves right now before this season starts.
It's funny that you say that. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
but
go for it.
I just posted a TikTok reel that was like, I'm living the blessings that I used to pray for.
Right.
Exactly.
I just got chills when you said that
It's
too. Like when
crazy.
you think about it, like you spend all that time like praying, thinking, manifesting about like this is what I want. And then like you open your eyes and you're like, oh my God, there's lights there and like I have a ring coming in a couple weeks. Like, man. Right?
When you take a second to step back, it's definitely like a aha moment. I feel like, you know, when you're in high school, you're like, oh, the dream is to play in college. When you're in college, the dream is to win a championship. Now we're at Media Day talking about our last year.
You got like, hold on. No, I love it. I love it. Looking ahead at that conference slate, right? We talked about the non-conference, but that conference slate, who are you circling like this is a game I'm ready for?
In conference.
Yeah, in conference.
All of them. All of them, honestly.
Every single opponent.
All right. Here, we got circle this one, all of them, right?
We need this one,
this one.
Need that one.
Definitely need this one.
I love it. So we're just going to watch all of Rice's games.
Exactly.
Let's get into
absolutely.
some quick rapid fire because we're running out of time because we were, talking about 5-year-old us and our dreams and getting chills for sure. Favorite sports movie?
Oh, goodness.
Sandlot. The Sandlot.
Ooh, one or two?
Ooh.
The first one.
Okay.
Classic.
Kicking and Screaming.
Oh my gosh, no one has said that one yet. Amazing.
Or Joanna Man.
Ooh,
That's a good
okay,
one.
we got some new one. All right, I love it.
Yeah, well, a lot of people say like Love and Basketball.
Love and Basketball, yep. That's what everybody's been saying. Love and Basketball. We're like, no, Love and Basketball. Okay, all right. Favorite Halloween candy?
Kit Kat or Twix or Twizzlers.
Okay, so
all right. Kit Kat, Twix, Twizzlers, but you threw in the Twizzlers. So it's a little bit different.
Twizzlers. Whoppers, I really like.
Whoppers?
I know it's an unpopular.
That is. I'm sorry, girl. I can't agree with you on that one. No
really
Whoppers
like
for me.
As long as you just
Nerds.
don't say milk duds.
All the Whoppers for you. Nerd clusters. Have you had
Nerd
the nerd
clusters?
Oh,
Not for Halloween candy.
I count
Is that new?
I call it.
Are we
Halloween.
old?
We're getting old.
We've been trick-or-treating in a minute.
No, don't say you're old because you're gonna make me feel old. I don't know if you did the '90s items game yet, but if you get to it, I'm gonna feel really old. Moving on. One teammate that you wouldn't want to take on a deserted island with you.
Can we say this at the same time? Do we have the same answer?
Maybe.
3, 2, 1.
Emily. Not taking M. Love her. I love her to death. But I would not take her.
I choose life.
No, yeah.
That's fair. I like that.
Not having the same answer.
I like that you decided to say it at the same time. Two more quick ones for you. There's a lot of owls in the American Athletic Conference. Which one's the best?
Rice Owls. Come on.
Rice Owls.
All right. And along that same vein, let's say in 24-25, you just won the American Athletic Conference Championship game. Again, the buzzer sounds. What's the first thing that you do?
Cry.
Fall to the ground and cry.
Fall to the ground and cry. Did you cry last year?
Yes.
I did not.
You did?
Oh,
No.
so you're crying for round 2.
I'm crying for senior year.
Okay,
Senior year,
okay,
going
all
for the
right.
championship.
I remember like it was yesterday. I subbed out, walked in the bench, gave Salo, our strength coach, a big hug, and I started bawling.
Well, we'll see if you cry again in year 2.
will.
We'll be watching the entire season. Thank you so much for joining the set today. This was a
thank
ton
you
of
for
fun and
having
good luck
us.
this year.
Thank you.
The Rice women were so great to talk to, Kyle. And, we were able to catch up with every single men's and women's team at Media Day. And we're going to have so much of that content coming out in the coming days, weeks leading up to the season. So going to want to check that out.
No doubt. I mean, the fact that you guys were so busy, you had so much going on, and the fact that you got to speak to everyone across the board that was involved in Media Day, I'm excited to check it all out. I even enjoyed seeing the different mentalities there. I mean, UAB, those guys were so light and loose. I loved Toney, and the point that he threw Yaxel under the bus immediately.
Right under the bus.
Right under the bus, and it did not mess around. And then on the right side, it was an intensity. It was a focus. That I think this team it personifies their mentality going into a season. So really excited to see all those different content pieces coming out, and I'm certainly going to have to check out every single one of them. I am so excited for basketball season and super excited to see them in the top plays as well. Let's take a look at some of our top plays from Week 7 of All-American. We'll start things off. FAU on offense against North Texas. This game was wild at the beginning, and of course, if it's wild, it's going to have some trickery. The flea flicker wide open to the tight end in the end zone. Pitch and catch. This was a similar play that, of course, we saw in the NFL game later in the week. Unfortunately for the Dallas Cowboys, it was the Detroit Lions doing it. I think they took something out of the FAU page and out of their playbook to get it done.
Yeah, they certainly did. Lots of creativity in that play right there. And, we had creativity on the football field, but there was some grit, determination, and so much resilience on the volleyball court. How about this one? South Florida and Tulsa. South Florida trying to remain undefeated in AAC play. Wait for the effort on this. The dive backwards, Kyle, from Maria Clara Andrade to keep that ball alive. Oh, my goodness. Talk about a long rally, and then the Bulls just coming up with the point. Whew. Resilience. I got tired just watching that play.
No doubt about it. I really liked it. And the fact that you're on the road, you're playing at the Reynolds Center. That's one of the bigger, more intimidating venues in American Conference volleyball. And you go and make a play like that, and it's a total team effort like that. I love it when there's a team aspect to it. And the first 2 top plays so far, Florida Atlantic, multiple people touching the football and a trick play, and then we've got the team element here from South Florida volleyball. Very, very nicely done. This next one's not really a team-oriented one, but we did talk about it early in the show. Bryson Daly has been fantastic this year. He's got some strength to him as well. Bryson Daly says, "Get off me. That tackle's far too weak for these arms. I'm going to the end zone for the first of 5 touchdowns on the day. Oof! Give it a little extra physicality." That's what we're known for here with the Army Black Knights. And he says, "Shake it off. I'm going to the end zone."
The slow-mo version really got me on that one.
Goodness
Oh, my
gracious.
gosh. Just like helmet to ground. Like I felt that watching it from the studio. And oh, my goodness, I'm sure that everybody else is going to be feeling that and seeing that for a little bit.
My favorite part was seeing the CBS crew both on the actual call. They were really excited about it, but then they went out to L.A. They were at the Coliseum for Penn State and USC, and they had the halftime show in L.A. And those guys were going through the first half highlights, and all of them reacted too when they saw it again in the slow-mo angle. Phenomenal play from Bryson Daly, and it's not the only time he's found his way into top plays this year.
No, and I'm sure we'll probably see him again. We'll move over to the soccer pitch, though, where there is somebody who hasn't been on our top plays yet this year, and that's Caitlin Starr-Bolen-Boudrum for the ECU Pirates. Now, ECU trailing by 1 to Memphis, trying to tie it up with 15 minutes to go. Just look at that kick from so far out. Talk about some strength. She got elevation underneath that one and ties the game for the Pirates.
We had to make the font smaller in the graphic just to fit the entire name into the show. But here's the thing. You deserve it with a kick like that. We will make it as small as possible if you can find a way to find the back of the net, just like Caitlin Starr-Bolen-Boudrum just did. boom, into the back of the net, almost at back of the end zone. Either way, phenomenal play from ECU. And the Pirates are rolling soccer-wise. They got the things rolling on the pitch.
Yeah, they're looking really good right now. I liked they put on their social media something along the lines of she's a star because one of her names is Star. So I really like that. And definitely when you are able to have a kick like that, put the star in the caption, all of it.
Speaking of stars, they were shining bright deep in the heart of Houston, specifically not San Antonio, because Rice in the Owls with 4 seconds left, finding the back of the end zone, a diving grab from Matt Sykes, the 6'4", 210-pound receiver out of Hawaii, makes a play for the Lone Star-led Rice Owls in their Houston Oiler-clad colored uniforms at home inside Rice Stadium. This stadium once hosted a Super Bowl, and this is still one of the best plays it's ever hosted. Having the win over UTSA, a much-needed affair for the Rice team, and they get it done as time nearly expires on what was a crazy back-and-forth affair.
Yeah, we saw this play earlier in the show. We teased it, but we had to watch it again, and I think every time I see it, I'm like, oh, my goodness, I think it gets better. I've seen it already, but oh, my goodness, just the throw, the catch, the ability to hold on to the football and the win.
All of it.
Checks all the boxes.
The situation at hand specifically said, you can have an incompletion. It'll be okay. There's still going to be 4 seconds left on the clock. You'll get another shot at the end zone. Sykes says, no, I'm going to take care of business here and get it done. Phenomenal job from the Rice Owls, and you are the #1 top play from Week 7. But that's going to do it for us here on All-American, the first All-American, because we've got all-conference matchups, 14 teams in action, 7 games, mano-a-mano, conference v. conference all the way through, and then we've got basketball on the horizon. Maria, it's been a whole lot of fun.
Oh, my goodness. So much excitement. So many sports we covered today, too, which I really like getting them all in there for sure.
Yes, no doubt about it, and it's not the only time. We're going to do just that. Be sure to subscribe, press the like button, do everything you can to keep up with All-American, whether it's on ESPN+, YouTube, the American socials, whatever it is. Follow Maria Trivelpeice, follow myself, Kyle Youmans. We're bringing you American content throughout the week, and we are super excited to be here and continue bringing you that content. So for Zach Fisher in the back, for Maria Trivelpeice, I'm Kyle Youmans saying so long from All-American. We will see you next week.